Money Matters TV. I am Robin Bond and I am your host. And I'm very excited to announce that today we are launching a new version of Money Matters TV, and we're calling it Law Talk. As many of you know, I've been following the show for about the past year. I have been co-hosting with a financial advisor, and now we've decided to do something a little bit different. And we're going to focus on legal issues that may be of interest to you, the viewers. See how this goes, see if we can turn it into like a Fraser Crane for TV here. That all depends on your interests and what you'd like to hear from us. By way of my background, I have been both an in-house attorney and I have been the founder of my own firm, a firm that represents employees in the negotiation of severance and employment agreements. That firm is called Transition Strategies. We're located in Wayne, PA. And we do represent the executive's best interest in these kind of deals that affect the world of work, and therefore your money matters. Every week I will have a different lawyer guest co-host with me, so we can explore different areas of the law, things that are of interest, and help expand your knowledge base. So when you're looking for lawyers in particular areas of interest or need, you may have some knowledge and background from this show. I'm very pleased to say that today our guest is Marina Kats. She is the founder of Kats, Jamison and Associates. They're a personal injury firm located in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Marina has a fascinating background. She grew up in Ukraine and came to this country and managed to get herself all the way through not only law school, but to get a master's in trial advocacy from Temple, which only a very small percentage of attorneys ever achieve. So her firm, they do all kinds of civil and commercial litigation. And today we're going to primarily talk with Marina about personal injury cases, because that's usually of great interest to many people. And I'll be very pleased to see what she has to offer today. Now, welcome to the show, Marina.
Thank you, Robin. I am honored to be your first guest.
Yes.
It's very important to have a right inaugural show, so it's wonderful. And I am honored to be selected, obviously, to be your first guest on the show. And I know about your attributes a lot because I read about you and how interesting what you do. So thank you. And also, you're a local celebrity today because yesterday you were published in Enquirer. I hope a lot of people read it, and it was very interesting quotation. So now, since we're doing the legal talk, maybe you could tell our viewers today, because it had to do with the firing and a small businesses. And I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to us is a small business owners who need some advice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, yesterday I was quoted in the Philadelphia Inquirer for an article about what local small business owners should know before terminating employees. Because this time of year, always around November, is when employers are looking to say, how can I make my numbers? Or if I'm not making my numbers, do I need to reduce headcount, reorganize, right size, whatever the wording is. So, there are ways to do this that work, and then there are ways that just don't work so well. And one of the things that I encourage business owners to do is, don't make it a total surprise to people. If you think it's performance based, try and give them an opportunity to know what is bothering you and what they need to do to change. If it's just a reorg, the important thing for me is, like, don't just fire people. Offer them some sort of a transition package, a severance package of pay and benefits, so it's less traumatic, not only to the employee, but also to the employee's family. Because face it, whatever happens to employee has a ripple effect, often on many people. So we have to be mindful of that. Also, if you don't offer a severance package to an employee when you are exiting them out the door, it's an incentive to them to sue you, because what's the deterrent? It's not
I
like
have
they
a
have to
question
walk
for
away.
you.
Yeah.
How could they sue you, from my understanding, and again, that Pennsylvania is employee at will state, And if I could fire somebody for any reason other than discriminatory reason, what would the possibility of employee to sue me if I done everything right?
Well, if you've done everything right, but invariably each employee comes to you or me with a different story of how they have been treated less fairly than their younger colleagues, than their male colleagues, than their white colleagues. Title VII is the discrimination code words that we use. Are you being treated more harshly than your peers based upon your age, race, religion, gender, color, national origin, disability, or veteran status? And invariably, people will tell me, well, this happened or that happened. So, employers think they're doing everything right. And, when I was an in-house attorney, invariably I would learn so much more once I started talking to the plaintiff's attorney, and you get a whole different angle. But regardless if you did everything right, Marina, I just suggest to employers, if you're going to let people go, it's a humane thing to do. It improves morale for everyone else. It makes you an employer of choice because they say, well, at least they treat their people well. To the extent anyone cares about that, these are just some tips that make it a lot easier, especially if you're firing people right around the holiday season. So, this is the time, and we do encourage everyone, if you get a severance package, you will see right in the severance package, if you're age 40 or over, federal law requires that you be given a minimum of 21 days to review that package with a lawyer, and you should take advantage of that. Is there anything missing? Is there language that is overly restrictive or broad that perhaps needs to be changed? Do you have a restrictive covenant in there? Maybe that should not be enforced under the circumstances of your termination. There are just a lot of different things. Plus, it's buying peace of mind to know that you've reviewed it. And if there is an opportunity to improve that package, you have taken that opportunity, and you will have peace of mind knowing that you can close the chapter of this part of your life and move on with peace.
Actually, I've done a couple of the reviews for the different employees, and interestingly enough, some of them the employer says, I will pay for the attorney to review it.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, couple, the ones that at least I've reviewed, they had employer clause that says I will pay up to $4,000, whatever the amount it is for the
Wow.
consultation and review.
That's excellent. A lot of times,
actually, then you cannot say, well, I didn't have money to go to the lawyer and have it reviewed. So employer basically gets an additional protection by putting that clause in it.
very smart. Yeah, that's very smart, Marina. You don't see them doing that too often, but where you see that is in executive contracts, like C-level people, CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, or vice presidents and stuff. Maybe in their employment contract, they have a provision that the companies will pay their attorney's fees up to a certain amount. But that's super, because it helps them a lot. Hey, Marina, we do have a question that's come in, and I'd like to see if you could answer that. Our question is from Robert Zimmer, and he said, Zims, I'm sorry, Robert Zims of Philadelphia. He says, I lent a relative some money that he never paid back. Is there a time deadline on when I can sue? Could you help him out, Marina?
Well, first of all, Robert, thank you for question. And obviously the wisdom is if you want to lose a friend, lend them the money.
Yeah.
It's not helping you now, but if you would have come to me early and said, Marina, I'm thinking about lending money to the relative, I would say to you, make sure that's amount of money that if they don't give it back to you, you can live without it, number one. Number two, the biggest problem with that type of a lending is that there is no terms. You don't have a piece of paper that says, they have X number of days to return it, X number of years to return it. What the terms? Do they have to return it upon demand? Do they have to return it at the leisure time? So even going to court and suing on that loan, will be very difficult situation. Obviously, Pennsylvania also allows some oral agreements, but unless you have an agreement that says it should be returned by such and such a day, then you have a period of time to sue it. If you have indefinite when they can return it whenever they have it, it doesn't make any sense to file the complaint.
Okay. I checked that too, and it looks like you have about 4 years to bring a breach of contract suit if you thought so, but I would not encourage people to wait till the very end. Yeah.
Presuming you have a contract. See, what the situation
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
John, I need to borrow the money. Okay, how much do you need? $3,000. Here's $3,000. You'll give it to me back when you can. Now
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. That's right.
When does a 4-year even start? If when you can? Is it?
Yeah, right. It's supposed to start from the date that the money is due, but as you point out,
But
there's
when you can is when it's.
ambiguity. There's no certainty to that,
Yeah.
right?
No, even among friends, I always say, and the promissory note is not enough.
Mhm.
I am a big believer that you need to have an actual collateral.
Yeah.
The mortgage would be an ideal situation, that way you know that you have something to collect against. Because unfortunately, in America, we don't have a debtor's prison. And since we don't have a debtor's prison, the government does very little to assist you in a collection. And the only way you can go to prison for not paying your debt, if you owe money to IRS, or you owe child support. Other than that, basically, it's almost an honor system. I mean, if
So
you
they probably ought to be looking at this as a gift to a relative, right, Marina?
that's how I would look at it.
Maybe there's a tax benefit. Maybe it can be a tax deduction in some way, shape, or form.
No, probably not, because it's not
Yeah.
a business expense. It
Right.
would be a personal loan.
A
So
personal gift. Personal.
yeah,
You just say, oh, it's a personal gift. I can write off so much.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Marina. I hope that was helpful, Robert. I'd like to segue now, though, to getting into what Marina Kats does for a living here, which is personal injury work for people who have been injured. So tell me a little bit, Marina, about when we talk about personal injury work, what does that involve for you? Okay, what does that mean?
Well, what it means that every day I am lucky enough to help people directly, not something that takes forever.
Yeah.
People can come in to my office and directly know what's going to happen when they got injured. And it doesn't matter how the injury happened. It could be a car accident, it could be slip and fall, it could be a bus accident, but has to be fault of somebody else. And as a result of that fault, you suffer a physical injury. And your life will be altered as a result of it. No matter how big or how small the injuries are, it affects people's daily life.
Uh-huh.
So the first thing people need to know that whose fault it is in an accident. The easiest one to explain is obviously automobile accident. You're
Yeah.
stopped at the light, you're minding your own business, and somebody hit the back of your vehicle, right?
That's happened to me. Yes.
Well, come
Yes.
to me, we'll make you lots of money.
Oh, a long time ago.
Well, you have 2 years from the time of the
Yeah.
accident until the statute of limitation is expired. So, but it is a very important, very simple thing. The first thing, obviously, what I tell people is check yourself. Make sure that you are more or less okay. Then call the police. You always need a police report, even if the other person comes out and says, "Oh, it's my fault in an accident. I'm so sorry. I apologize." Let's not call the police and exchange the information. It's never a good idea because people change their mind. People
Yes.
somehow forget the circumstances. And it's very, very important to have a report right there and then. So that's the first thing. Then obviously, I always recommend for people to call us right away, or any lawyer if they have a family attorney, to call them. Our number is 215-396-9001. But when you're involved in any type of accident or incident, that's the first thing you should do is consult with an attorney. And then we will be able to tell you and design a good course of action that will maximize your recovery. Obviously, the way I tell the clients, I cannot get your health back. I don't have a magic wand for that, but I
Right.
could certainly do everything I can to make sure that you're properly compensated for your injuries.
Hey, Marina, sometimes at the scene of the accident, people say, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" How should people respond to that? Or should they always or automatically just go get checked out? Or what kind of
Well,
advice do you give
so
on that?
that's an interesting question because 95% of the time people are so shaken up, they're just
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, I'm alive, I'm all right,"
Yes, right.
which is obviously a very low standard for being alive, but it's a very true standard. So, like, I'm standing here, I can breathe, I
Yeah.
see you, I'm not bleeding, or I'm not bleeding a lot, I'm all right. So the saying "I'm all right" at the scene of the accident does not really mean anything, nor does it preclude you
Good.
to bring a lawsuit later on.
Good.
And most of the people will say "I'm all right" because the adrenaline is pumping so high, the excitement is huge. So
Yeah.
most people, even when police officer gets on the scene and they say, "Are you all right?" Most people will say, "I'm okay. Would you like to go to the hospital?"
Yeah.
Most people, again, will deny going to the hospital. And it's interestingly enough, 90% of the time is just a statistic. People are more concerned about their car than
Oh,
they are about the physical condition at the scene of the accident because they would say, "Yeah, I would have gone to the hospital right away, but I was worried about what's going to happen to my car." So that's
really? Wow.
in a
I wouldn't
slip
have
and fall.
expected that. Huh.
Yeah, in a slip and fall cases, it's slightly different. People concerned about being embarrassed from falling, and
Yes.
they try to get up as quickly as possible, like they did
Yeah.
something wrong when there is a huge defect on the ground. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just the way human nature is. We're all so afraid to be looked at the wrong light or do something wrong that we sometimes losing sight of doing something right for ourselves.
Wow. Well, Marina, if I am fallen, like I was out to dinner Saturday night with some friends, I saw a woman walking down the steps, exiting the restaurant, and she fell. And I went over and I caught the guy at the host stand and I said, "Somebody just fell down your stairs." And so they set her up, but it was just like you said. She sat there for a while and then just left. And I don't know what happened to her, but let's just say she comes to you and says, I think I need a personal injury attorney. What are the questions that this person should ask of you uh, in deciding whether or not to hire you as an attorney? What are the kind of questions
Well,
our viewers should know about?
the first thing the viewer should know is to trust their instincts.
Mhm.
Because when you are sitting across from the attorney, the first thing you should ask yourself, do I trust this person?
Ah,
Because
good.
this is a person from whom I am entrusting my case. And sometimes
Yes.
it's the most money that the person ever gonna come to,
Yeah.
and you don't get a second bite at the apple. So it is
Mhm.
very, very important to have this element of trust, to look the person in the eye and say, "You know what? Am I going to be taken care of with this person?" And the
Yeah.
lawyers are sort of like a doctors at the end of the day. You need to have a confidence in your doctor and you need to have a confidence in your lawyer. You should ask her also if the lawyer litigator, because a lot of time people go to the lawyers who don't go to court and
Oh my
achieve
God.
and
I know
achieve.
that I had somebody go to an estate lawyer, like somebody who drafts wills and trusts with a personal injury case. And shockingly, this estate attorney took the case and it was a disaster, only rescued when a personal injury attorney like yourself got involved and was able to save the day. So that is an excellent point to make to our listeners.
It happens a lot, and the reason why it happens a lot, because obviously personal injury is very lucrative, and everybody, watch on television all those
Yeah,
lawyers.
thinks they can do it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Uh,
it's, you really should make sure that the lawyer who is going to take your case is very familiar with a personal injury. I've
right.
been doing personal injury for 37 years.
Oh wow, that's
So
great.
obviously, this is what we do day in and day out. I have attorneys in my office who do other practices also, I call it people's lawyers. We have somebody who does immigration, we have somebody who does family law, and we have somebody who does criminal. But the bulk of our practice is a personal injury, and I would never advertise I can do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, because nobody can. So
Correct, especially in today's world, everything's very specialized. So, in your line of work, Marina, what are the hardest injuries to prove?
probably brain injuries.
Um,
There is such a thing as an organic brain injuries, and the problem with them. Actually, if your viewers or you saw the movie Concussion, you're realizing how hard it is to prove the brain injury.
um,
Unfortunately, most of the brain injuries are strictly organic, so there is no brain bleed. It's not like you can get a scan. There is a brain bleed. You could see it. I mean, obviously, that's a horrible injuries, but most of the time it's just a concussion. And what
yeah,
happens, there is no test really to determine. There is some sort of test that can uh, measure your cognitive abilities. But again, there is no, you will not usually have stored your cognitive ability before the accident versus your cognitive ability after the accident. So we
wow.
had a student who had a pretty bad accident, and she was still scoring 80s on a test.
Um,
So seems to be okay with the brain activities, but in reality, this student never had anything below 95 before
oh,
she was ever in
ah,
an accident. So things change, and unfortunately, there is no test yet that could develop that you did have a concussion. There is concussion protocol that doctors use, but you cannot
right.
really somehow do lobotomy, take a look at it, and put person back together, and everything will be fine. So that's a hardest injury to prove. I'll tell you a case we tried, got multi-million dollars as a result of it. But the woman was a nurse, not was she just a nurse. She was a great nurse. She was the nurse that would do the videos of how you should assist in operating room. And after the accident, she could not go back. She could go back to be a nurse, but she could not be nurse in an operating room. And she accidents like this can change your personality, sort of like Alzheimer's. Some people are kind until all of a sudden they get very angry.
Right, yeah, yeah, right.
And that's what happened with her personality. She became a very angry person.
Does this affect the value of the case?
Very much so. And it affects your trial strategy also, because you want a jury to like your plaintiff. You want the jury to like your client, because we all
Ah,
know
yes, yes,
people
yes.
tend to give money to people they like and don't give money to the people they don't like. So if you put the person on a stand and person is not likable, not because they weren't likable before they were, toast of the town, loveliest people, but because of the brain injury, they're no longer processing the information the same way. They are annoyed with you. They have short fuse. They tend to, especially on the cross examination, they will tend to really be nasty towards the defense attorney. Juries don't like that.
No.
Juries like a peace in the courtroom. They want to get to the evidence, and they want to hear the evidence in a calm manner. And interestingly enough, I am a very, very big believer that the truth will always come out in court. Maybe each juror individually is not the most brilliant person in a room, but when you put 8 jurors together, believe me, there's not a single person IQ that's smarter than all those 8 people together.
Ah, that's good to know.
Extremely interesting process. It's just jury can come up with a really, really very creative answers that normally, individuals do not.
And
So
what are you finding is about the timeline for getting a resolution of many of these personal injury cases? Now, I know you can't say with certainty, but just generally speaking, what should you expect?
So the way I always say, and I like to joke with the people because then it stays in their mind longer.
Yeah.
So normally in a average circumstances, treatment will last about 6 months. And the reason why 6 months is such an important timeline, because under American Medical Association guideline, 6 months, if you didn't get cured within 6 months, your pain is chronic. And what the doctors like to put in the report, that the person achieved a medical plateau, meaning no additional treatment is actually going to get them better than what they are. So on average, and again, it's strictly average, it's people who treat for 2 or 3 years while the lawsuit's going on. But most of the time, the doctors could make a pretty clear determination within 6, 7 months of treatment, whether it's chronic and should be sort of managed by medication and occasional visit to the doctor rather than intensive physical therapy.
Thank you. Marina, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to end it here, but this was a fantastic show. Thank you so much for coming on. I think all your tips are going to be very helpful for anyone faced with the very unfortunate circumstance of a personal injury. Hopefully this will help our viewers know how to make the best out of such a situation. So thank you again.
Absolutely pleasure. And I thank you for having me as a guest.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And to all our viewers, please join us next month, where we're going to have somebody talking about the fascinating world of AI. Those shows are always, great. But here's how to send in your questions. And as I told you before, we are looking for you to send in your questions.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our hosts and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
All right. Thank you again, everyone. And we will see you here again next month, same time, same place. Have a great month until then.